Hi, my name is Kyle and I'm 27. I come from a bit of a struggling household and growing up was not easy for us. I had lived in Utah most of my life and moved over to Boston for college, after which it was a series of back and forth, but some recent happenings made me realize that life eventually blesses you and karma hits people who try to pull you down. So growing up, I always saw my parents working their tails off just to put food on the table and keep a roof over our heads. There were 6 of us kids in total, and I was the oldest. We did not have much in terms of material things, but Mom and Dad always made sure we knew the value of hard work and sticking together. They were big on teaching us that education was the most important thing in life. I took that lesson to heart, and from as far back as I can remember, I loved school. It was my escape and a chance to prove myself. I was always the kid with his nose in a book, driving my teachers nuts by asking a million questions. But I guess they saw something in me and always supported me. I worked my head off in school and managed to snag a couple of scholarships that got me into one of the top universities. I went to Boston and double majored in business administration and psychology at Boston University. Graduating with honors was one of the proudest moments of my life, and I was so happy that I could almost taste the success and the future that I had imagined for myself and my family. I wanted to give back to my parents and to my siblings who looked up to me. But then life happened. Right after I had graduated, my dad fell ill. It was very sudden and unexpected. He had always been the rock and the one holding everything together, but then suddenly he was the one who needed us to hold him up. He was going to work one day when he suddenly got a paralysis attack, and the rest was history. On hearing all this, I didn't think twice about it and rushed back to Utah. Dreams are great and all, but family comes first, and being the eldest, I had to step up and take whatever job I could find to help out. It wasn't glamorous, but I went from dreaming about corner offices to flipping burgers just to keep the bills paid and the meds coming for Dad. It was tough, and there were days when I used to come home bone-tired and smelling like grease, wondering if I would ever get back on track. But every time I looked at Dad and saw him fighting to get better and the worry in Mom's eyes, I knew I was where I needed to be. Months turned into years and Dad's health improved slowly but steadily. Then one day, when things had gotten a bit stable, I decided to go back to Boston and search for some jobs there. I applied to a few companies but didn't get the job because of the gap in my resume, plus I had no experience. Each interviewee praised me for my academic excellence, but they preferred experience over it. Then, one day some guy from my building offered me a job as a driver in a company, and I was desperate, so I took it. It was sort of a mixed bag. Here I was, with a shiny degree in business administration and psychology, and there I was, behind the wheel of a company car, chauffeuring around people who didn't have a clue about my background. I needed to support my family, and a job was a job, even if I was overqualified, so I tried not to think much of it and stayed set on my task. I remember my first day vividly. It felt strange being on the other side of the corporate world and seeing it from the ground up instead of aiming for a corner office. But I put my head down and got to work, knowing that every day I showed up was a day closer to another opportunity. Now Mr. Davis and Mr. Heiress, my supervisors, were pieces of work. They were the kind of guys who looked at you like you were beneath them. Davis with his pinstripe suits and constant smirk, and Heiress with his arrogant swagger. They never missed a chance to remind me of my place. Even though they were not high-ranking executives but just some supervisors, they walked around the whole building as if they owned it. They used to laugh and make snide comments, completely unaware that I had dreams of my own. There was this one time I was parking the car, and when I got out, Davis stood at some distance and started complaining about someone messing up some financial reports. He then laughed at me for not understanding a thing. And then, one afternoon, I was standing by the car, waiting for Mr. Davis to finish his lunch. He sauntered over, wiping his mouth with a napkin, and gave me his usual condescending smirk. "Kyle, you know the company is facing some serious issues right now, but I guess you would not understand any of this business language anyway." I felt the familiar pang of irritation, but I kept my face neutral and nodded. "Yes, sir." "What kind of issues?" "Oh, just some high-level financial decisions, restructuring, things that are a bit over your head. But don't worry, you just focus on driving." "Of course, Mr. Davis. I'm sure you have got it all under control." "You know, it is not as easy as it looks. Balancing budgets, managing all the staff, and it takes a certain kind of intellect to handle people like you." I was boiling in anger, but couldn't do anything. "I'm sure it does, sir. Must be stressful." "You have no idea. But that is why people like me are in charge and people like you. Well, you drive people around. Right. Well, I'm glad you understand, Kyle. Stick to what you are good at and leave the complicated things to us. Inside, I was seething. But I knew arguing with him would only make things worse, so I nodded, "Will do, sir." Despite the daily grind and the not-so-subtle jabs, I used to stay focused. In my limited free time, I kept my nose in the books and used to read up on the latest business trends, market strategies, and management techniques. I used to spend my lunch breaks at the library or on my phone, soaking up as much knowledge as I could. I knew that just because I was driving today did not mean I would not be leading tomorrow, and that's what kept me going. There was also this one incident that really got to me. Mr. Heiress had dropped his wallet in the back seat one day, and when I returned it to him, he did not even look up from his phone and just mumbled, "Good job, driver." It was like I was invisible, just part of the scenery, and even though it hurt a lot, I kept moving forward, reminding myself that I was working towards something bigger. And these were just some of the minor incidents that happened. Other than this, Mr. Heiress and Mr. Davis left no opportunity to insult me, along with all the other drivers. It was not all bad, though. Some of the other staff, like the receptionists and the janitors, were kind and understanding. They knew what it was like to work hard and be overlooked. We used to share stories during breaks, and talking to them was like a breath of fresh air. Through it all, I kept my eyes on the prize. I knew that if I kept working hard and stayed patient, an opportunity would eventually come my way. And if it didn't, I would create one. Now Lisa, my girlfriend, was my biggest supporter through all of this. We met back in college when both of us were just trying to navigate our way through lectures, exams, and the maze of campus life. After staying friends for a while, we started dating, and from the moment we started dating, I knew she was special. She was very kind and supportive and was always ready with a smile or a word of encouragement when I needed it most. When things took a turn after graduation, she was there. When I was struggling, she was there, and even when I found myself at the post of a driver, she didn't bat an eye and stood by me through it all. She understood the grind, the late nights, the constant striving for something better. She never once made me feel like less of a man because of my job. Instead, she admired how I handled things and believed in my potential, even when I struggled to see it myself. One thing about Lisa, though, was that she was tight-lipped about her own family. We had been together for around 4 years when I was working as a driver, and yet I had never met her parents. She rarely talked about them, and when she did, it was always in passing, like she didn't want to dwell on it. All I knew was that she came from a humble background, but she never let it define her. But other than that, Lisa was the greenest flag and never left my side through hardships. There was this one time when I had a particularly rough day at work. Davis had been extra snarky, and I was feeling very low. Lisa must have sensed it, and she surprised me with my favorite home-cooked meal, without me even having to say a word, and that meant a lot to me. But as our relationship grew, I could not help but wonder about her family. It wasn't that I needed to meet them to validate our relationship, but I wanted to understand her better, to fill in that missing piece of her life she had kept hidden away. But every time I brought it up, she would just change the subject. I respected her privacy, but a part of me yearned to know more. Then one day I was just wrapping up and getting ready to head home when I saw Lisa waiting for me by the entrance. She had come to pick me up. We were about to leave when Heiress strolled by. He stopped dead in his tracks when he saw us together and made his familiar sneer. "Well, look who it is, Kyle and his girlfriend, right?" "Yes, this is my girlfriend Lisa, sir." "You two look like you just walked out of a thrift store. Tell me, Kyle, is this your idea of high fashion?" I felt the anger rising, but I took a deep breath and tried to keep my cool. Lisa, however, didn't flinch and met Heiress's gaze head-on. "Mr. Heiress, judging people based on their appearance says more about you than it does about us." "Oh, really? And what does it say about me?" "It says you are insecure and you feel the need to belittle others to make yourself feel superior. That's not the mark of a strong leader, Mr. Heiress. That's the mark of a bully." Just then Davis came strolling in. "What's happening here?" "Oh, Davis, glad you came, buddy. Meet Kyle and his girlfriend Lisa, two filthy poor people. A match made in heaven, right?" "Ha ha ha, rightly said, buddy. I wonder what it must be like to be so poor. I feel sad for you both." "We don't need your pity, Mr. Davis. Kyle and I are proud of who we are and where we come from. We have worked hard for everything we have, and we respect others who do the same. It's a shame you can't see the value in that. You are just a driver, Kyle. And your girlfriend, what does she even? Just as Mr. Heiress was laying into us with his usual insults, a sleek black car rolled up and Mr. Walter, the president of the company, rolled out. I couldn't believe my eyes at first. Mr. Walter was a legend and was the kind of guy you heard about but rarely saw up close. He must have overheard what Mr. Heiress was saying, because the moment he walked over, the whole area went dead silent. Even Mr. Heiress looked like a deer caught in headlights with his mouth hung open like a fish out of water. Then, to everyone's shock, Mr. Walter dropped the bombshell of the century. "Lisa, honey, what's the matter? What's the Heiress of my company doing here? Why didn't you tell me you were here? I have been looking forward to catching up with you." "Hi, Dad. I'm here to pick up Kyle. I told you about him, remember?" I swear my heart stopped beating for a second. Lisa was his daughter? The Heiress to the whole company? It was like the ground had been pulled out from under me. All this time, she never mentioned a thing about who her dad was or what she was set to inherit. Mr. Heiress and Mr. Davis's faces turned as white as a sheet, on the other hand, and all the color drained away faster than water down a drain. They looked like they had seen a ghost and suddenly realized that they had been mouthing off to the wrong person. I couldn't even form words. My mind was trying to process this sudden shift in reality. Lisa, the girl I had fallen head over heels for, was not just any girl. She was the daughter of the big boss, the one who signed my paychecks. However, Mr. Walter diffused the tension like a pro. He greeted me warmly and shook my hand like we were old friends. He didn't make a big deal out of the whole thing and just said that he had heard great things about me from Lisa. I managed to stammer out some kind of reply, thanking him for the opportunity and trying to keep my cool despite my mind still spinning. After the whole circus outside the company, Lisa and I sat down for a heart-to-heart. She opened up and told me everything with all the details. She started by explaining her family's wealth and how her dad, Mr. Walter, was the big shot who ran the whole company. Turns out, she could have lived like a princess if she wanted to. But instead, she chose to live modestly and moved out of her parents' home when she went to college in order to blend in and experience life like an ordinary person. After college, her dad had decided for her to join the company, but she wanted to gain a bit more experience outside before joining the company, and so she was working in a tech startup currently. She further told me that she did not want to be defined by money or class, and that she wanted to understand the struggles of everyday people and appreciate what it means to work hard and earn your keep. I sat there, trying to wrap my head around it all as Lisa went on to explain how meeting me had been such a wonderful experience for her. She saw in me someone who worked hard, who didn't let setbacks define him, and who genuinely cared about others. She wanted me to know that her feelings for me were real and that they had nothing to do with her family's status or wealth. I was overwhelmed, to say the least. The girl I had fallen for, who stood by my side through thick and thin, was not only the daughter of the company president but also someone who valued the real me and genuine connections above all else, and I felt a rush of gratitude and admiration for Lisa. Then a few days later, Lisa suggested introducing me to her parents. After everything that had happened, she felt it was time for me to meet her mom and dad. I was nervous as heck, not just because they were wealthy, but because I felt I did not deserve Lisa. But to my surprise, her family welcomed me with open arms. Mr. Walter, Lisa's dad and the big shot himself, was surprisingly down to earth. He asked me about my background, my qualifications, and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me. I told him all about my degree and my education qualifications, plus my family situation as well. "So Kyle, tell me a bit about yourself. What's your background?" "Well, I grew up in a pretty big family with 5 siblings. My parents worked hard, but we always struggled to make ends meet. I was fortunate enough to get scholarships that allowed me to go to some great schools. I graduated with honors in business administration and psychology from Boston University. That is quite an achievement. But why did you choose a driver's post after being this qualified?" "Well, after graduation, my dad got sick, all of a sudden. I had no idea what to do, and when I came back to Boston after a while, I didn't find any good jobs. And so I started as a driver just to make ends meet and support my family." "I see. But you are wasting your talent and knowledge, my boy. How about joining our HR department? It would be the perfect fit for you." "That would be wonderful, sir. Thank you so much, Mrs. Walter. If I had known earlier you were working in my company, I would have helped you out. Please let me know if you face trouble with anything." "I will, sir. Thank you again for this opportunity." I must have struck a chord with him because before I knew it, he was offering me a position in his company. And not just any position, but the job of an HR manager. I knew Lisa must have put in a good word for me, and Mr. Walter saw potential. He told me he wanted me on board, not just to fill a spot, but to make a real impact. He also decided to groom me for a leadership role, mentor me, and help me grow within the company. And so, with Lisa and Mr. Walter's support and guidance, I dove into my new role. It took a bit of time to adjust myself, but the whole thing was right up my alley, so I grasped it all pretty easily. I was not just there to punch the clock, I was there to change how things worked in the company because I had experienced them personally. I wanted to create an environment where everyone felt valued and where hard work and dedication were rewarded, no matter one's title or background. It was not easy navigating the politics and dynamics of a big corporation. But every day, I drew on the lessons I had learned, and once I got the green light to make changes in the company, I did not waste a single second. I dove headfirst into setting up policies that actually favored the people who were doing the heavy lifting, like the lower-level employees who often got overlooked. I discussed everything with Mr. Walter before moving forward, and he agreed that the working conditions of the lower level were indeed poor and steps should be taken to improve it. So first things first, I initiated regular feedback sessions. I wanted every employee, from the guy on the factory floor to the girl in the cubicle, to have a voice. Their opinions mattered and their ideas could spark real change. So we started these sessions where everyone could speak up and share their thoughts on how to improve things. I also set up training programs and workshops which the company lacked. It basically helped people sharpen their skills and move up the ladder if they wanted to. It was not just about keeping the wheels turning, it was about investing in our people and giving them the tools to succeed. Now Davis and Heiress, well, they did not take too kindly to my changes. They had gotten comfortable in their old ways and had gotten used to throwing their weight around like they owned the place. Now when I was shaking up their little kingdom and challenging their authority at every turn, they tried to push back, of course. Snide remarks, passive-aggressive comments, you name it, they tried it. But I did not back down. I stood firm in my convictions, knowing that what I was doing was right for the company and its people. Slowly but surely, their positions became uncomfortable and their old-school methods clashed with the new direction I was steering us toward. And to say it wasn't personal would be wrong. Of course, I wanted them to pay for what they had put me through all these months, plus I wanted to show them that this was actually the right way to handle the working of a business. I will admit, it was not always smooth sailing. There were moments when I doubted myself and wondered if I was biting off more than I could chew. But then I had seen the positive changes taking root, like the smiles on employees' faces and the whole environment of the office changing, and so I knew I was on the right track. Next up, I decided to expose the whole work of Davis and Heiress. Now, gathering evidence was like piecing together a puzzle. I knew things were not right under the surface because I had experienced them myself, but when I started digging a bit more, I was shocked. I began quietly by listening to whispers in the break room and catching snippets of conversations that hinted at mistreatment. Then, I started asking questions and discreetly gathering stories from fellow workers. And it was not long before the floodgates opened and the videos of unfair treatment, testimonies detailing the abuse and exploitation they had endured, all at the hands of Davis and Heiress, started coming up to me. I couldn't believe what I was seeing and hearing. These were hard-working people just trying to earn a living, and here were these supervisors, using their positions to bully and manipulate them. It made my blood boil, but I knew I had to go carefully. This was not just about me anymore, it was about standing up for what's right, and as an HR manager, it was my duty to do so. And so, armed with the evidence, I didn't waste a second. I set up a meeting with Mr. Walter and laid it all out for him, all the videos, testimonies, and everything. I walked into his office, feeling a mix of nerves and determination. This was it, the moment I had been preparing for. I had to expose Heiress and Davis for who they really were. "Kyle, come in." "What is this all about?" "Mr. Walter, thank you for seeing me. I have some serious concerns about Mr. Heiress and Mr. Davis. I have gathered evidence that shows their mistreatment of employees and other misconduct." "Go on." I pulled out my laptop and placed it on his desk, opening a folder filled with videos and documents. "I have got videos and testimonies from several employees. They have been bullied, manipulated, and exploited. Here, take a look." He watched the first video and it showed Heiress belittling an employee, his voice dripping with condescension. Another video followed, this time of Davis making snide remarks and laughing at a worker's expense. This is unacceptable. I showed him more emails and written testimonies, all detailing the abuse and toxic behavior. These are first-hand accounts, sir. People have been too scared to speak up, but they trusted me with their stories. And you are telling me all this because? Because it's the right thing to do, and you must take action against it, sir. And because this kind of behavior has no place in this company. We need to create a safe, respectful environment for everyone. I had no idea it was this bad. Kyle, I appreciate you bringing this to my attention. We can't let this continue. My decision to make you HR manager was perfect. I'm proud of you. Thank you so much, sir. Can I ask, what do you plan on doing now? We need to handle this swiftly and properly. But rest assured, Mr. Heiress and Mr. Davis will be held accountable for their actions. Thank you, Mr. Walter. The employees deserve better. Kyle, you have shown a lot of courage and integrity by bringing this forward. We need more people like you in HR. I have been impressed with your work and your dedication. Let's talk about your future with this company once this mess is cleaned up. I would be honored, sir. Good. Now let's get to work on fixing this. We have got a lot to do. As we discussed everything further, Mr. Walter was enraged, to say the least. He did not mince words or beat around the bush. He made it crystal clear that such behavior had no place in his company, and that he would not tolerate it for another second, and he called for a meeting. On the day of the meeting, the atmosphere was tense as I stood in the HR conference room, and Heiress and Davis were sitting across the table from me, with their faces twisted with anger and disbelief. This was the confrontation I knew was coming, but it did not make it any easier. They knew I was behind it, and I did nothing to deny the fact that I had exposed them. They deserved it, and this revenge was long coming for them. Mr. Walter was also there, and after hearing everything, without hesitation, he took action. He fired Davis and Heiress on the spot, and their faces turned pale as they realized their reign of terror was over. And in reality, it was a moment of justice, long overdue for the people who had been on the receiving end of their abuse. After everyone had left the conference room, Davis and Heiress stopped my way and started to spew their nonsense again. This is ridiculous. You are nothing but a driver. Who do you think you are, coming in here and trying to ruin our careers? I met his glare with calm resolve. I'm the person who finally stood up to your abuse, and now, as HR manager, it is my job to ensure this company treats its employees with respect and dignity. Your behavior was unacceptable. You think you are some kind of hero, Kyle? You are just a nobody with a fancy title. You will never be more than that. This isn't about titles, Mr. Heiress. This is about doing the right thing. You both have made countless employees' lives miserable with your bullying and manipulation. I have seen the evidence, and so has Mr. Walter. And I have experienced it too. That is why you are being let go. You think this is over. We will see about that. We have connections. You will regret this, Kyle. Mark my words. Threats won't change the facts. You are being fired because the evidence speaks for itself. You are delusional if you think this company will back you over us. We have been here for years, and you have been here what, a few months? A few months is all it took to see through your fake up front. Your time does not justify misconduct. The company values its employees, and what you do goes against everything we stand for. You will never make it in the corporate world, Kyle. You are too naive, too soft. People like us. People like you are the reason companies need strong HR policies. I might be new to this role, but I understand what is important, and that is treating people with respect and fairness. Your way of doing things is outdated and toxic. Enjoy your little victory, Kyle. But don't think for a second this is the end. We will be back. If you come back, it won't be here. This company is moving forward, and there's no place for people who think they can bully and mistreat others without consequences. They stormed out of the room after the heated argument, and I was finally happy things were going my way. It was not easy, but it was necessary. The company was better off without them, and I was ready to help lead it into a brighter, more respectful future. Mr. Walter also did not stop simply after firing them. He implemented new policies and stricter guidelines to ensure fair treatment and respect for every employee. He made it clear that this was just the beginning and that he was committed to creating a workplace where everyone could thrive. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, knowing that I had played a part in making things right. It was not simply about revenge, it was also about standing up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves, and about creating a culture of accountability and respect. And as for me, I was ready for whatever came next. With Mr. Walter's support and the trust of my fellow employees, I knew I would reach heights of success, while Harris and Davis would still be swimming in their actions.